You're on.
Good evening. It is the 4th of January 2022. This is the meeting of the Tufton Borough Budget Committee. And we do have a quorum, so we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any public input this evening? Forthcoming, we will review and approval of the December 14th minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I believe these minutes are not complete. Specifically, I did make a motion, and I think that that motion ought to be part of the record.
Was it seconded?
But that wasn't at the last meeting. The motion was made previously.
No, this is a motion was made by Mr. Shaves to amend the number 23 minutes, seconded by Selectman Albee for discussion.
Right.
Is that the motion you're talking about here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I have that with me if you'd like me to reread it.
Well, no, it said Ms. Ugg made a motion to move the question for vote, seconded by Ms. Sawyer. And we had the vote on the above motion. Motion failed 1-6. Is there another?
No, at the last meeting, I did make a motion, and it was seconded by Chip. And I can read that motion to you if you'd like, and it would have amended the minutes from the previous session.
Well, I'm looking at the minutes as we speak,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to figure out what.
Yeah, if you follow it down, Gary.
Beg your pardon?
If you follow it down to there was a vote on that.
Maybe I didn't get the same, oh, here we go. Yeah, the minutes of the last meeting reflect the fact that I did make a motion and that it was voted on. What I'm saying is that that motion ought to be part of the minutes that are being reported tonight.
Oh, the actual motion
That's
itself.
right, that's right.
All
That's
right.
right. I understand that this is saying that the event took place, but the motion that I made should be part of the record. It was made and seconded.
All right, well, you can give that to, have that, we can amend the minutes to include that.
That's what I'd like to do.
Right.
If that can be done, then I'm happy to approve these minutes.
Those will be done. That will be done.
Okay.
Okay?
So, while we're on that.
Now, what that does, excuse me, I'm sorry. What that does is amends the minutes from the previous session. That was my motion. The motion was an amendment to the previous one.
I would have to hear what your amendment
All
was.
right, so should I read that for you now?
Please do.
Okay.
Make sure that Jane gets it all too.
Yeah, okay, so I am looking at the minutes now for the November 23rd meeting, and the motion I made was that we would add the word unlinear, which I'm sorry, I was thinking pretty rapidly that night, and the proper word is non-linear, but if you want to use my word, which is not a proper word, I'm happy to have the word unlinear. So I wanted to add the word unlinear after the word its. That would be in the 4th sentence of item number 4. And then at the end of that paragraph, the additional words would be added, which are, quote, with respect to common living costs, such as home heating, comma, automotive fuels, comma, and food. So that was a motion, and it was voted down. So those minutes would not change. However, I feel that the minutes for the last meeting, December 14th, should reflect the actual wording of the motion that I made and that was seconded.
So basically, Gary, and I'm just trying to summarize this, is that you want the verbiage that you, of the motion itself in here.
I'm sorry, I had a little trouble hearing you.
You just want the verbiage for the
Yes.
motion
Well, the motion-
included in this?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
The motion should be in the minutes.
Okay.
As part
So you
of-
just want that to be part of,
the minutes that we're
minutes.
approving tonight.
gotcha, that's all it is.
Does anybody have an objection or object to putting that wordage in? It does not change the outcome of the vote. It's more of a housekeeping issue. If there are no objections, we'll take care of that.
Okay, then on that basis, I have no problem with those minutes.
Chip, now you mentioned you have some,
No, it's just that I guess I'd ask the chair to direct our secretary that all of the other motions in these minutes revolve around documents in the budget.
yes.
This one didn't. So in the event that someone else makes a motion for something outside the language of the budget, I think Jane has to be adding what or actually delineating that motion
All right.
in the minutes. It would make it a lot easier, I think. I mean, probably shame on us for not telling her, but because the minutes are pretty consistent all along, with the exception of Gary's motion, which was outside the language of the budget. That's all I'm saying. Follow that, Jane?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure I do, but it sounds reasonable.
Well, right, well, you made, I make a motion to accept budget 4550.
Yes, yeah,
We've already talked about budget 4550,
Right, right.
so all of the language that we're motioning is in there.
in there, right.
But
right.
you're outside of that.
Outside of the budget documents, but within the context of.
Or, no, I'm not
minutes.
saying it's not within the context of
Right.
our discussion. I'm just saying it needs maybe a little more fleshing out in the minutes.
Right, right.
That's all.
Okay, so we've
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second?
been moved and seconded as discussed.
As amended, whatever.
As amended.
As amended.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
said as
I'm fine with
amended.
that.
Very good. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I don't have to give you COVID, buddy.
Thank you.
Put my mask on.
Okay, moving on, chairman's comments. I don't really have anything other to say. Move on to the budget reviews. The first one is conservation.
Oh, here's Steve.
I think, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to do the presentation, comment now.
Please. Good evening.
Good evening, how you guys doing?
Good.
Okay,
Got a couple questions.
that's why I'm here.
Okay. There are two line items here. There's Great Meadow Trail for $3,000 and the water monitoring, which was budgeted for $3,000 last year. Nothing was expended, $3,000 is in again. So my first is Great Meadow Trail, a new item? And second of all, are we doing any water monitoring to justify the $3,000 expenditure?
So so we'll start with that one first. That was in there. So the $3,000 just doesn't reflect the bill that came in. I believe it should have been paid the last pay cycle of December. I did submit the bill to the town hall for, I believe that one was, the total bill was $2,700, but that was split between environmental study of 19 Mile Brook and the water monitoring.
So it has been expended, it just isn't showing.
Yes.
All right, so that bill has been submitted, so.
It has been submitted, it was submitted before the end of the year, so that it did hit this budget cycle.
Now, what can you tell us about this Great Meadow Trail?
So the Great Meadow Trail is, you know, as you all probably realize, we do a lot of work out in the Great Meadow on the, what we call the south entrance, which is down by the transfer station. And what we feel is that in order to get some funding from other sources, we need to have matching dollars that come into play. So we felt that we'd put the $3,000 in there, so we had money for matching grants that we're going to be applying for this year. We felt that if we didn't get the grant, then we could utilize the money to actually continue working on the trail.
On your water monitoring, what water are you monitoring?
So there are two bodies of water that we're monitoring. We're monitoring Mirror Lake, and then we're monitoring Winter Harbor. So those two, and what we do is we have volunteers that go out and take samples of the water once a month during the summer months, right up from, I would say we start in around the middle of May, right till the end of September. Well, actually, we take 2 samples in the winter, in October, and then 1 in midwinter. And then we send those off to UNH, and that water monitoring fee is what we pay UNH to do the analyzation of the water monitoring.
Further on down is an acquisition monitoring. What is that monitoring?
So that is more of our acquisitions, and that was, I believe, and I'm sorry I wasn't around when that was, the word monitoring was put on. I believe at one time that we were actually doing monitoring out at the Great Meadows. We had some monitoring wells that would go in that were testing the waters and the grounds of the Great Meadows, but that is acquisitions. That is the money that we use if we have some funds that we need for acquisition of lands, conservation lands within the town.
The fee that University of New Hampshire charges, is that a separate fee from from any expenditures we have for monitoring the Lake Winnipesaukee, because they monitor that also?
Yes, so this is strictly for Mirror Lake and Winter Harbor itself, not for the rest of Winnipesaukee, so just those 2 sections.
That doesn't come, Winter Harbor wouldn't come under their lake program?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I don't believe it does, because we wouldn't be, both organizations wouldn't be doing the same monitoring. It all goes up into the state, so it's, you know, the data that we receive from the New Hampshire, University of New Hampshire is all fed into the state database, so it would serve no purpose to duplicate those numbers.
Does the state monitor Mirror Lake?
No, the state does not monitor. The state collects the data that we monitor and send up to them.
Then why are we monitoring Mirror Lake? For cyanobacteria?
Yes, cyanobacteria, phosphorus levels, there are a number of different chemicals that we are monitoring in the lake.
I'm a little bit confused. Could you just pass those statements about the Great Meadow Trail money again by me? You want to put $3,000 sort of out there so that you can attract matching funds?
Yes, so usually when you apply for a grant,
Yeah,
they require you to put so much dollars up front.
up front.
Yeah,
Well,
before you can use the grant money, you have to spend your own money to get the matching funds.
All right, okay.
Is there a granting process for that right now?
We're going to be applying for 3 different grants this spring.
Mhm. My general feeling about the conservation budgets is that many times what's proposed just doesn't become a cost. And on the other hand, it's not a huge amount of money, and so I don't get too excited about it, but in the interest of making sure that some of the things that are proposed actually happen, there's a side of me that says maybe we ought to hold off on allowing the overfunding to happen, okay? And it's not a huge amount of money, so I'm not terribly put out by this. But this Great Meadow Trail amount, is it likely that you would spend this money this year?
The $3,000?
Yeah.
Is that, I want to make sure we're talking about the
Takes
same
time for
amount.
them to come in, the project's got to be planned out. I'm just wondering if this can just be pulled out and put in next year's budget, and then at that time you have, I mean, you can apply for the grant and say that you're going to match the money.
So,
But
Yes,
I'm just
yes
wondering
and
why
no.
we want to put that in the pot now and have it sit there, and for one thing, you may not get a grant, and secondly, it's going to take, I can't imagine it's going to happen within the next 12 months.
well, it really depends on the grant. One of the grants that we're applying for is the RTP, the Retail Trail Program through the state of New Hampshire. And that actually, the grant is applied for in the spring, and you actually have to use those funds before the summer ends. So
Alright, okay.
you're limited to a period of time
Mhm.
that those funds have to be used.
And how much is that grant? What gonna be?
We're applying for $10,000 on that one.
So you're going to need 5?
I don't believe it's 5, it's usually 20%.
20%, all right.
So,
Okay.
it's not,
Mhm, okay.
and then we're also applying for the Moose Plate grants, which are very similar to that. Those come out in September or October, and you have to be ready to move on those when they approve those funds.
And then along that line, the environmental study, now, isn't that something you guys just completed, or is that just a new study coming up?
I'm sorry, which line are you talking about, sir?
It's down, the third one up from the bottom, environmental study, 19 Mile Brook, 15.
Yes,
Right.
Okay.
And that's gonna be an annual expense.
that's, yeah. We put that in every year because depending on what is found in 19 Mile Brook,
Mhm.
we need money to continue those studies.
So you have an ongoing study
Yes,
in place?
yes.
Okay.
Town of Wolfboro contribute to that at all?
Town of Wolfboro is actually for the 19 Mile Brook study that's going on now. It's a 3-year study. So the town of Wolfboro is actually paying for the environmental group that is doing the work out at 19 Mile Brook. They're covering 100% of that cost. So this is money that is in there. If they find something within that study and we have to go deeper to understand what that is and where it's coming from, that's what this money would be utilized for.
We know where it's coming from.
Why wouldn't they do that, though? Why wouldn't they be responsible to do that?
Because it's the town of Wolfboro.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty happy that we got them to undertake the full cost of the study for the 3 years.
But we still have an arm's
That's
length arrangement with them. You know, they're gonna protect their own liability before they even start protecting us. And as far as the Great Meadow Trail is concerned, we'd have to fund that even if we get a grant. It's not like a warrant article
Yeah,
where we're asking for $2 million, but so much of it's coming in grants and.
well, we're gonna make a statement that we're in the grant application, and we're gonna match the money, so I.
It's a requirement.
It says that we should have the money in the bank.
It's a requirement of the grant, yes.
No question?
Move the motion to approve conservation for 612 in the amount of $18,800.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Move in second, is there any further discussion on this? None forthcoming, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you,
Thank you.
and thank you for your good work. The fact of the matter is, without that pond out there, this is just a wide spot in the road.
If only.
And then the last thing we have, actually in our whole contemplate a budget as personal administration. Chip?
Yep, as we go through the numbers, you can see that our health insurance dropped $24,000. Deductible HRA reimbursements flat. Dental insurance is goes down a bit. The Social Security went up, but that's based on salaries, and obviously we had a COLA. The big ant at the picnic is the retirement fund. The state decided to underfund the retirement portion once again. So that budget line increased by $12,000. Unemployment compensation went down, our group rate changed, so our policy on compensation went down. Longevity pay stayed virtually flat, and separation pay stayed flat. So long and the short of it is, year to year, we're up $2,351.
I have questions.
Go ahead.
So, and regarding the personnel, are performance reviews done on the employees prior to their raises?
They are, in fact, a lot of the employees do get merit increases. They all got COLA.
That's just an automatic, COLA's automatic. And is there a comparison when you're preparing salary or going to make a contract? Is there any comparisons done with other towns in the exact same position?
There's an ongoing, there's a study that has been done, and it's ongoing updates.
You mean the Thornton study?
Not performance, but wage scale.
Yeah, the Thornton
Yeah.
study, that one that was done however many years ago.
Right, but that's been updated since that was done. I think it was a decade ago where it started.
I mean, I'm just questioning because I went through, I did have time, I did have the opportunity to go through, and I just randomly pulled some salaries, didn't really look. And from what I was looking at, it just seems that some of these are way out of the ballpark for what the exact same position in towns, and that's what I'm just questioning, how you guys feel about that. And then the other question I have is, how do these salaries compare to like the average wage for a resident in Tufton Borough? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't. And I'm not certain that's relevant.
Huh?
I'm not certain that's relevant.
Well, I mean,
it's.
it is relevant because the townspeople, if somebody's making, if the average wage in Tufton Borough is X and there's a municipal employee that's making Y, I mean, it's, there should be some kind of a check and balance.
Well, it's not socialism that we have here.
No.
A local doctor is going to be paid less than a doctor
At Dartmouth.
at Dartmouth Hitchcock. A local attorney is going to make less money than an attorney in Manchester. So although they still have the same education, they still do the same number of hours of work.
You just answered my question, you're right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
So
getting at.
our premise has to be what are municipal employees paid? And how comparatively.
Right.
And whether or not the local citizenry is making less, I don't know how you even calculate the averages on that.
And just, I guess that's.
Because I can't say, take someone working at a store in Wolfboro and compare them to a person working at the town office.
I guess it just goes back to my original one,
Yeah.
the comparatives to other municipal employees in the exact same position.
Right.
That would be really the question I'm trying to get the answer
Right,
to.
and I know Gordon's gonna start taking me to task a little bit, but I also did compare municipalities and their insurance policies, for instance, and how do we square against them?
You mean
And we're
with
pretty-
overall cost?
Well, the cost is generated by the group.
Right.
And that's pretty standard, but it's whether or not there's coverage, how much of the coverage is paid, et cetera, et cetera. And we're about in the middle of the pack as far as communities are concerned. And actually, in the smaller communities, we're below the average.
As far as,
How much insurance do we pay for each employee? How much insurance is provided to the workers?
Was that the, excuse me, is that the policy or the participation by the employees in the cost? That's always been my beef.
Right, both. You know, whether or not the employee is participating or not, or whether the employee is participating at 10% or 20%, or not participating at all. So that calculation's done in these studies. I didn't call all these towns, but obviously somebody did.
And you're telling me that we're not totally unique in
We are not.
paying
totally-
100%?
We are not totally unique.
That's interesting.
that's interesting, because everything I looked at.
And actually, if you balance out, you know, if you balance out salaries and benefits, total them together, we're not even, I think we're just around at 80th percentile as far as compensation for employees. So the total compensation package, not just the wages.
And this is based on the study that you guys go by.
Well, that's exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm just making sure, this is where I'm confident that you're telling me the data that you're getting this from is a study that is updated periodically.
Right.
Would that be a correct statement?
Periodically would be a good choice
Periodically.
of words, because I'm not, I can't say for certainty whether it was last year or this year, or 5 years, I know it wasn't more than 5 years ago.
Okay, so it's just a periodic study that this is how you base the numbers on.
Well, we base, okay, we're basing our comparison on that. Our salary levels are based upon when they were hired, what the salary level was, and then how the steps have changed that over the course of time. So we may have employees that have been here for 10 years, that because of their participation in training, et cetera, and COLA, they might be above the average for, let's say, a transfer station worker two, or whatever position you want to pick.
No, I mean, that stuff makes sense. I mean, what you're saying all makes sense.
And the longer, I'm sorry,
No, that a lot of, I understand what you're saying. It's just that if you pick it apart, and I know you don't like the line item thing, and I understand that, but when you pick it apart and you go back through, and I mean, yeah, I'm a nobody, but I'm pretty smart at using and looking at things. I just randomly pick some things out, and based upon the level of the employee and the level of what the median is, only in the state of New Hampshire. I mean, I didn't go outside of New Hampshire. I figured New Hampshire was logical. There was some disparity, quite a bit of disparity in a few of the positions. That's why I'm asking these questions, because you know other people might have these questions, and I want to know where you're getting your data from. That's what I So you've answered my question, and there's no way to say that yes, the data is all correct all the time, but it just seems that maybe there might be another source of data that you could look at for some of these. But like I said, I just randomly picked out some. That's all I did. But I mean, I understand how to do it. I mean, there's a process. I get that.
and the longer your staff stays with you, the more out of average it's going to get. So one has to balance the value of longevity with cost of services. But when we get a new employee, for instance, we get a new secretary for the selectmen, that wage scale drops because that person's new at that job.
I understand what you're saying. The only pick I have is that, and I'm the newbie on the board, so I'm just gonna say it out loud. We should be looking at this first. We should not be looking at this last, because a lot of this information, these salaries, are in previous budgets.
Right.
We should be looking at this first,
I'm not certain,
because of the fact that
I'm not certain it was given to you last.
I'm just saying, overall, as me as a budget member,
Right.
I feel that I'm not doing my proper due diligence right now, because now I'm looking at something that is full of information. I mean, this is very informative. I would have loved to have had this at the beginning of the session instead of here at the end, because I would have been able to make a better determination in my head. So when all these other budgets came, like they were, for example, the fire department, when he came, he had clear explanations for like the equipment and all those other line items that we had. I mean, he had very good answers to all of our questions. I didn't have a big piece.
Well, I don't know necessarily having having those numbers would change the function of what the budgets were. In my opinion, though, it's always going to come back down to what I've been arguing with Jim since I came on the budget committee, was that the participation of the town employees in their health expense costs. And I bring it out to you again. Is there any ongoing discussion of this, or is this just going to be a question of who's going to outlast who, you or me?
You'll probably be on last meeting. But, yeah, we discuss it, and actually, the participation is in the form of deductible and copay, is how we've handled it. And part of the reason why you're seeing a significant drop this year in the health insurance is because of that. It's not gonna, I mean, we can draw swords every fall and talk about employee insurance, and my position is gonna continue to be that we've been providing these people with insurance forever, or for quite a long time, and we're gonna continue to do it.
But that doesn't mean you can't change the rules. It happens all the time in the free market. I mean, that's just the way it is. The next town over, and I'm not gonna name which one it is, it's irrelevant, the employees participate to their health.
And that's fine.
I think to tie what Gordon said and what
Yeah.
you said, that you look at this and you say, these numbers are big, this salary thing's big compared to the normal, regular person. Gordon saying, these employees at this big number don't contribute to their health insurance, but these people in the meeting out there pay for all of this.
Sure.
And that's what they look at. They say, geez, I only make, $35,000 a year, and I gotta pay this much for my insurance. These folks are making $100,000 plus.
Who
And they don't pay it. And that's what people
Who
see.
is making 100,000?
Who's making 100,000 on this list here?
Yeah.
Police chief,
Go down the list.
Who is making $100,000?
the police chief.
The police chief, who's been here for too long.
If you go to the total compensation,
Okay,
I mean, you do have to take into account, and this is just from the free market, is total compensation package. Because that is what does attract people. And I understand that it's hard to take away anything, but I am right, Gordon is 100% right. You have to look at things in the logical real world here, and participation in the healthcare by the employee is not unreasonable. If it was unreasonable, I wouldn't be, Gordon wouldn't be bringing it, we wouldn't be bringing this up.
The biggest municipal organization in the area is the school district.
yeah.
Right?
it's a
And there-
trend nowadays.
Pardon me?
The employees pay in, because there was a lot.
There is on the school district's budget this year, they've negotiated new contracts with support staff and administrators.
Yeah.
Support staff can be anybody from a bus driver to a custodian to a teacher's aide. It's all the non-professional employees, which is a slug of payroll. Their negotiated contract to be voted on when we do all our other voting is a 3-year contract with a 5%, a 4.5%, and a 4.5% increase over a 3-year contract. Their health insurance contribution goes from 4 to 4.5 to 5.
Yeah.
The administrative staff, which would be our police chief, okay, high school principal, whatever, It's a 3-year contract with a 3% increase every year, and their health insurance costs are gonna go from 4% to 5%. And that's my ongoing problem, is that, you know.
So having someone pay 5% of their health insurance is gonna solve the issue?
Pardon me? Is it gonna solve the issue?
Is gonna resolve the issue, I'm sorry. 5% of the health insurance policy for someone is gonna change anything?
It's gonna show level of participation.
And how
Which we
valuable-
all have to do.
How valuable is that?
How valuable is that?
Yeah.
From a public
I think it
relations
becomes
standpoint.
a question of equity.
I mean, it's no more valuable and no less valuable than me saying to Gary or Barry that you can't compare a town employee that works in our town office to a local grocery clerk. You can't compare that person to someone who's working on your crew.
But you
Just
could
can't.
compare them to somebody working in the SAU office, couldn't you? Isn't that a valid comparison?
In what, I'm sorry?
Is it to the person who does the payroll for the school district?
Sure.
Wouldn't that be a valid comparison?
Right, and that person in that contract that you just stated is all negotiated. Those people are all union. They're negotiating as one.
Not all of them.
Well, damn near all of them, and the ones that aren't are taking the benefit of the ones who negotiated, because that's how it works. So if you have 50 employees who are on a union and 10 who aren't, those 10 are gonna follow along and benefit. That's how it works that way.
I understand how collective bargaining works.
So,
But my point is that the time is going to have to come where people are going to have to start participating in the health costs.
it just
We
dropped
all do.
$20,000, Gordon. What
Pardon
do you
me?
want? It dropped almost 10% this year.
Because of increasing copay?
No, not because of increasing copay, but negotiating with the insurance companies. That's our job. You know, if I can get a 10% reduction this year, you're only asking for a 5% participation. You're actually going 5% the wrong way.
No, I'd be asking for 5% in addition to what else you've already
So
negotiated.
it's not good enough that we can work and get a 10% reduction or reduction. That's not good enough. See, this is where this falls down for me. It becomes not an economic question. It becomes a moral question.
Fine, well then you're,
And that's where I fall down on this whole deal. If it's gonna be a moral question about these people deserve what these people don't have, or whatever it is, I don't have any time for that kind of discussion. I look at the numbers, I look at the cost of doing business, I look at the track record over the years of how much it costs us to do business. That's what I look at. I don't really care. And what those people out there, and I hope we're on television, what those people out there that are making $35,000 and don't have any insurance should do, they shouldn't go to work. They should tell their boss, the hell with you. Give me some health insurance. You know, that's the issue here.
But the problem is,
Yeah, the boss can't
you
afford it.
can't, the boss can't afford the health
Really?
insurance. Yes,
Really?
absolutely, Chip.
No, that's not true at all.
It is true.
Well, then the boss isn't running his business very well.
No.
Because all I'm looking at in all of these different industries is more and more and more and more increases in costs.
This is where the disparity lies, and I'm not gonna argue the point, but the fact of the matter is, you're looking at big municipal businesses. Small businesses in New Hampshire do not have the ability to have affordable health care for their employees. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Anybody that has a bigger business, and Tufton Borough's a big business, it's a municipality. You have this is where it is. So that's not even an argumentative point.
We only
What
have
the point
14
is,
employees.
it doesn't matter. You're a municipality and you're categorized completely differently than a small business in New Hampshire is. That is the way it is. But I don't know if it's necessarily what Gordon is saying is a moral question. I guess that's for you two to duke it out with your swords later. But the participation by an employee is not out of the realm of the normal, is what I'm saying. And the overall compensation, as I said, I just took a handful of them. Our municipal employees should be paid well, absolutely, and they should make more money. They should, because they have a big task. But at the same time, there needs to be some due diligence paid. That's my point.
You know, all of this was very, very heavily debated almost 20 years ago.
Yep.
But I have one question. In terms of municipal employees as a class, is it true that most municipalities require employee contributions, or is it the other way around? That
It's,
there's a mix?
I didn't do the math, but it's split.
Split 50-50 roughly.
I'm not gonna say it's 50/50,
Oh.
but I know it's split.
Okay.
And you really can't look at it in isolation, you have to look at the compensation package.
Well, I'm looking at municipal employees as a class to begin with, because I have moral thoughts about how municipal employees ought to be treated as opposed to small business or
Right.
private. I mean, I've always been at the school, and I guess I'm a little old-fashioned on this, is that I've always felt that municipal employees suffer from a little bit of underpayment for an overcompensation of security. That's the model that I was kind of raised on. And I have a great deal of difficulty trying to nickel and dime employees that are making $20,000 or $40,000 for a small percentage of their healthcare costs. I think the insurance companies themselves, by providing less coverage, also force employees to make quite a bit of a contribution, and that has changed quite a bit. You know, deductibles and higher co-pays and all that sort of thing. You know, so but I would begin, if we're going to do anything, if Tufton is going to do anything, I would begin by taking a hard look and just on how municipal employees as a class of employees are treated. And I think I would tend to want to preserve the status quo. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you, when we go to town meeting,
yeah,
and you look and see who the largest employer at town meeting is,
yeah,
and the largest employer at town meeting is Social Security.
yeah,
All right, and everybody we got a nice Social Security bump this year,
yeah.
which was almost immediately taken away by an increase in Medicaid.
I was gonna say,
Medicare, excuse me.
Medicare got
Sure.
whacked.
All right, so my point is that I don't think that a certain level of employee participation is onerous, and I'm gonna go to my grave, I think, saying the same thing.
Yeah,
I see how the real world works, and in the real world, most people are paying some level of participation.
yeah,
Because it's the argument that it's never been done, and I've made the argument in the past, that's fine. So start with small things. Look at the health, look at the deductible reimbursement fund maybe.
well, maybe the answer.
Look at new employees coming in, say, all right, if you come into work
That
employee on this day.
I understand, I go for
Well,
that.
it's not going to happen
Yeah,
unless the selectmen decide it's going to happen.
Okay, as far as new employees is concerned though, and we did look at that, and we did hire new employees this past year. And the problem we have is creating classes of employees. Our insurance company was having a problem with that. Our labor lawyer was having a problem with that. They said if you have two employees, because they're all doing, they're co-training and doing each other's jobs half the time, is if you've got one employee that's been here for a while and is getting fully insured, another employee gets hired and is doing essentially the same kind of work or the same work and isn't getting the same compensation, then you have an issue.
At school district, same thing. New employees coming on, they're doing the exact same job. The newer guy on the totem pole gets a lesser package.
But that's a negotiated contract.
No.
Yeah, it is. If
I'm
they're-
talking about an ununion person that is getting hired at the school district level.
But they're taking advantage of the negotiated contract and collective bargaining. In our situation, it's a one-on-one contract. I mean, I'd love to have a union shop. It would cost us a hell of a lot more money, But at least then you're only negotiating with one entity as opposed to individual contracts.
No, these are individual contacts with individual hires, not through the school.
They're individual hires, Chris, but I bet if you looked at it, all of the conditions of their employment is based upon the collective bargaining agreement.
No. I
And it's
have
significantly
somebody,
different than-
I've been subbing there for 20 years and I'm under contract with the SAU right now, and that's not how.
But that's a contract that you've got.
No, I'm not talking about me.
Okay.
I'm not talking about, no, I'm nobody.
So, you know, I don't see a big marginal gain for the town to take a $40,000 employee and obtain a little bit of kickback on the insurance costs. I mean, it's too small. But what about some threshold over that threshold? Say an $80,000 employee.
You're preaching to the
Well,
choir.
Yeah, what would be a logical figure to look at for ceiling?
Well, how many, I don't know, we have a lot of $80,000 employees. We have a chief of police.
Yeah.
We have,
Well, almost all the police.
Yeah.
You're getting close to that now.
yeah, Jamie Hancock's getting close. The,
Fire chief, the captain's
Fire
getting
chief.
close. I mean, and it's not just that, it's the overall salary package, and I understand, you know, and like I said, I'm not here to argue with it. It's just that some of these salaries are out of whack, and you add the compensation package that's added to it, it just seems, it's,
but a lot of it, I mean, the biggest number that you see on that added compensation is the retirement. It's like $29,000 for the fire chief, I think. And that's a significant piece. But some of those employees, and I'm not certain the fire chief was one, don't get Social Security at the end of the day. So,
Another big thing. Here's a question I had, by the way, that's off topic. When we're looking at the salary layout here, overtime and on-call for the police department is almost $46,000 a year. How is that being distributed?
I'm sorry, which one?
When you look at when you look at-
overtime and on-call on the police department.
Okay.
those numbers are not being reflected in the patrolman and the chief's salary? Or is that just added on after the fact?
I'm not certain I understand the question. It's distributed as it needs to be, depending on the on-call or the overtime.
Okay, but those dollars are not being reflected in the total compensation by position that we're looking at.
Probably not. No, they aren't. Because that's, you got a salary and then you got overtime.
Okay, that's fine, just asking.
So salary employees can get overtime.
The chief can't, but other salaried employees, or other
I mean,
employees.
salary,
Actually, no, the only way you can have a salaried employee is if they're a supervisor employee. So you negotiate a wage, but if that person is not able, or hiring and firing his department, that sort of thing, they're not salaried, it's a wage that's broken down on an hourly rate. So the chief hires and fires his officers. So he is salaried, he's not gonna get overtime for anything. I mean, I think he can go out of town and do a duty and maybe make some extra money there.
You know, Chip, this table probably should include a column for on-call, because those figures are in our budget.
Yeah,
So I think that, in all fairness, they should be considered to be part of compensation. I mean, it happens every year. The chief, for instance, hasn't calculated how many off-call hours per year. He puts a number in the budget to reflect that. So, and I think if you look at the expenditure level for that particular line item, you'll see every year they do spend it. So that ought to be another column that's on this chart. It is compensation.
so overtime last year, we spent 11,417 of the 15,
Yeah.
or, I'm sorry.
Is that the entire police department, or is that?
11,002 of the, hold on. Oh, yeah. 2022 budget was $17,000. Our 2021 budget was 15,008. We spent 11,400.
Okay.
And what was the other item?
Well, there's on-call and there's holiday, not holiday, but,
Overtime and on-call.
So overtime and on call, you've got 11,400.
okay.
15,800. He's asking for 17. And part of the problem we have with that line is that we've got a four-person police force.
And split up.
Yeah, and we've got one out with injury and one out with,
Yeah.
Well, it's the case with the fire department too, it's split up,
Yeah.
because you have what, 3 officers or?
2.
2?
But the point is that it really is a compensation item. That's the thing. If you're looking at this chart, just to see what the total
okay,
compensation is.
to see what somebody made in a year.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not gonna change the budget,
No.
but it will change the explanation.
Right.
I got it.
I think that it would be reasonable to, at some point, as much as I might want to resist, I think we are going to be faced with a transition to doing something. And it seems to me that the most logical way to do that is to pick a threshold. And folks that are earning a certain amount below that threshold, the town will just continue to operate as it presently is regarding insurance. And then people over that threshold will begin some sort of a graduated scale.
It's called a highly compensated employee, which happens in business all the time.
I
What about the
don't like
new?
to equate the town with business, I really don't. It's a totally different thing. Businesses are operating for, a profit line. We're not. We're strictly on a cost line and trying to stabilize tax rates. It's a different ballgame altogether. But there's a lot of pressure for employees on both sides, municipal and private, to make some contribution. And I think the most logical thing to do is to start at some threshold level.
Well, that's the selectmen's job.
Yeah, I understand that.
All we
I'm
can do is
just,
all we can do is voice our
all of
opinion.
this is. And I don't want to drive home on a hard point again, but again, my comment about the COLA was that it's the same thing. These things that are based on a percentage of earnings result in a big number for the people who are making big earnings, and for people who are making small earnings, whether they're making a contribution or getting an increase. If it's the same percentage for them, it's less. So.
And not to beat the horse that's already dead.
Yeah.
But, I'm working on items like, we have an older workforce. When an employee reaches Medicare age and continues to work, we should be able to buy a Medicare supplement for that employee. We can't. That employee remains fully insured at a 25-year-old rate.
Right.
I find that absolutely abhorrent.
That employee could opt out of the insurance and get the Medicare on that.
They can, absolutely. We can't pay for it.
I know, I'm not saying that.
I
No.
know,
But that employee could do that, and not only that, and maybe I'm wrong, let me ask you another question before you say the answer. If a town employee opts not to take the health care, do they get a cash out? Because I know I have a relative that works in a different school department, not in this town. But if they opt out of not taking the health insurance, they get a cash dividend at the end of the year. Because they don't.
They did. We haven't paid one since I've been in office.
But that is an option.
How do we handle Clay?
Pardon me?
Was it Clay in that situation? Clay Young?
No.
I
So-
didn't think he was ever on the town health plan. And his wife was on it.
I'd have to look up.
What I guess my thing is, to the point of that, if that is you can do that, correct? I mean,
Okay, but let's assume that we could do that, or we did do that.
why couldn't
Our
you?
insurance company doesn't allow us to buy outside of the insurance. carrier.
Right,
So it puts everybody else at risk. So if, let's say you're working for the town, and you and I come up with an agreement, or you and the selectmen come up with an agreement that we'll pay you 5,000 or 10,000, whatever it is, not to be on the health insurance.
No,
So
but
that you could go
employee-
and buy your own health insurance.
what I'm saying is, for the Medicare person, I don't care about the person that can be covered by another insurance plan, but you're saying that the person that has reached retirement age, you are bound not to be able to, that person, you can't go buy Medicare for them. But what I'm saying is, if that person is at that point in their life and they can go get the Medicare on their own, they can opt out of the town insurance. It's not going to put the town at risk because they're opting out of the insurance because they're retired age. I mean, they can do that. There's no law saying they can't do that. I'm just saying, as a carrot or whatever you want to call it, if the town has that in place, that they chose not to take the health insurance, they could get a stipend whether it's $2,000 or $2,500 or whatever. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying about the employees that are regular workforce employees that haven't reached retirement age, because it sounds like there is a systemic issue with the insurance companies.
You know what I worry about is you get an employee that's not making a lot of money. They need money to live on, obviously. They make a decision to take a $2,000 stipend instead of buying insurance. And the next thing you know, you've got an employee that's sick and can't perform and walking a fine line whether they can do their job or not.
Well, then
There's all kinds of issues here that.
I think Chris was discussing people on Medicare.
Yeah, all right.
I was
No, she did talk
Okay.
about people not taking insurance.
Our insurance company's policy, and every insurance company that I've dealt with that has policies available for us, says if you have a full-time employee, that full-time employee has to be on the plan, regardless of their age.
And that's
I
underwriting. That's underwriting, I think.
Yeah, and that hurt anyway, I'm not.
I mean, I'd love to have legislation that says, fine, they can be on the plan, they have to be on the plan, but the plan has to offer a Medicare Advantage plan, which is significantly less money than a full cost health
You can
insurance.
get them for free right now.
Pardon me?
You can get them for free right now.
I don't know.
Yeah, sure, you can do that. Sorry.
Yep. That's fine.
I've heard
I
you
mean,
say that, but I didn't know if
Yeah,
that's true or not.
it's true. I mean, I've beat the dead horse enough. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, to go back to the employee contribution stuff, I'm wondering if an employee of Blue Cross Blue Shield contributes to their insurance, even though they're working for an insurance company. Do you think Blue Cross makes the employees contribute for that?
Liberty Mutual does.
I bet they do.
Liberty Mutual does.
Yeah, I bet almost all of them do.
They're a for-profit
And
company,
back to
that's
Gordon's
their
point,
deal.
Right.
it's gotta happen sometime.
Different horse.
We're not quite blue in the face, but we're getting there.
I made my point. All right,
Once again, we have to.
once again. All right, well,
If this is the night when you beat me up, and that's fine.
I'm not trying to beat you up, I'm just trying to reiterate my point.
We're not beating you up, Chip. We know you're a heartless bastard, you know.
I am. Well, in a commercial setting, I would be a heartless bastard, but the other thing about this is there are so few employees here in this deal, and it's so hard to gather employees around you in a town of 2,000, that it's not at all like the normal marketplace where, and there's no way to bonus it. And you guys are trying,
Yep.
and you'd drive me out of office if I started bonusing employees.
All right, well. Do we have a motion, by any chance? Should we move on? If not, I will move, and I'll make a motion. I move that we accept this, the Selectmen's recommendation for 4155 for $635,555.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, those in favor, aye. Those opposed?
Me. Sorry, can't do it.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
We because we vote on something that doesn't necessarily mean we
Yeah.
always have to agree with it.
That's right.
And sometimes that one no vote has more power at town meeting. That would at least we looked at it. I mean, Gary's comment is just, you just, stamping the approval of whatever the selectmen tell you.
Okay, well, that concludes our budgets. Based on what we voted tonight, by my lack of Excel program in my house, shows where you're coming in at $4,367,880, as opposed to $41,956,25 last year, which is approximately a 4.1% increase. So, and what was our goal again? 4.5? So,
Yeah, I knew it was gonna be a little higher than last year.
Could you repeat those numbers again?
yeah, I would have printed this out, but I'm also
It
waiting
was
on
$4,367,880.
4,367,880, based on tonight's vote. This, of course, is excluding all the warrant articles,
Right.
and that's what,
Total operating.
and whereas we have no correspondence that talks about, we have a sheet provided by the selectmen with your initial thoughts on the warrant articles.
It's just a list. And you wanna go through it?
Well, I've got,
These are just possibilities. Has anything been brought to the table yet? Have you seriously discussed any of these yet?
We've seriously discussed the Union Wharf project, and our intention is to go forward with that. The paving and the neighborhood paving, we've seriously discussed. I'm not certain the paving and neighborhood paving are gonna remain at 400,000 plus 100,000. So the warrant article that you get may be different from that. The engine 2 payment is the engine 2 payment. That's the last payment on that device. Looking at the 10-wheel dump, which needs replacement, and looking at the market, I don't know that he can get one. So,
That should be off the mark until prices come down.
well, I'm not certain the price is gonna come way down, but I'm not certain there's a 10-wheel available out
Right.
there.
Right.
So why
Right.
burden the warrant with $235,000?
You could probably build one quicker.
Hey, before I got one, the town of Wilkes-Barre, did you read about that in the paper?
yeah, they found the one with 800 miles on it,
Yeah.
brand new, essentially a brand new truck.
Yeah.
That wasn't a 10-wheeler either, that was a
No.
1.5 ton.
Yeah, and
I guess my question for you is, where are we standing with the police facility?
okay, the police facility is showing $267,000 more dollars that we need, according to architects and building people. We're meeting with them on Friday. So this is the number generated by them for the meeting on Friday. So we haven't dissected that number yet. So that, once again, this is just a list. It is gonna probably require a little more money, but we're also looking at some more grant money. So we haven't got the answers on that quite yet either. Which leaves us with the police cruiser, which we put off last year.
We only have 4 police officers.
If we're on camera, we can talk about that. But once again, we haven't voted on that police cruiser yet.
So that's a maybe, and the 10-wheeler is a maybe. These are things that are just possible. I mean, you said you
Right.
seriously discussed Union Wharf. You
Right.
seriously, the paving, the numbers might be skewed, but there's probably going to be a paving article.
Right,
Would that be reasonable to say?
they could, the 400,000 may be adjusted. I don't think the
Right.
100,000 is gonna get adjusted very much.
The police facility, that's gonna be something, but it'll have a different number, probably.
I hope.
The baler and storage, that's been discussed quite heavily, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
the baler is premised upon the vote last year at town meeting
Right.
to recycle
Right.
paper. So these are, it's two, I think, used balers that he's looking at.
Two.
But that requires a warrant article in order to fund it. And maybe the town will,
So by the 18th of January, which is what our next meeting is scheduled for, will you have
Sure.
warrants and wording on warrants available, do you think?
we should have. We'll definitely, obviously have the police or the fire apparatus. The Union War, I think we've exhausted possibilities of grants on that. So that'll just come through as a straight warrant article.
Okay.
The paving will, by the 18th, I'll guarantee that we will nail those two numbers down. And the baler will come in, and hopefully the police facility will have that nailed down by then. I hope.
Well, the reason I ask is that, trying to figure out when we can have our hearing, our final vote.
What about revenues? We gotta take a look at the revenues, don't we? It's something-
Well, I think we've given you the revenues, haven't we?
No.
Haven't seen them in a while.
Okay. So when so our next meeting's the 18th.
The 18th.
Do you want to do revenues as well as some warrant articles?
Well, it'd be nice to see the anticipated revenue in order to vote on.
Yeah, it's a part of the budget.
Next meeting's the 18th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to the revenues. I can't say this week, but Monday, I'll make sure they get out, because we went over them, we voted on them. We set the tax rate, so they're there. And, yeah, the contingency, we've never spent it, but we've always put it there. But my hope would be to, the net on the 2021 warrant, once you backed out the police facility grant money and capital reserve money, was $1,063,000. And I think if we can stay somewhere in that range, as opposed to $1,004,000, and I think that has to be our goal, is to try to drive it down to that number. At that point, you're looking at 4.5% gross increase, or let's say it's a 5% gross increase. And we've got undesignated funds that will handle that at tax season. So I think we're looking at a minor increase, if not no increase, come next October.
Do we have any idea how much the assessed value of private property has increased over the past year?
Over the past year?
Yeah.
We'll get a report.
I mean, that works against taxes, really, and well, it's a source of revenue for the town, additional tax money.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it has to be.
It isn't.
How can it?
Okay, if you have $1 billion, if you have a $4 billion
No,
budget.
it's not in terms of the budget, because the budget's divided, but going forward into the next year, you have a bigger base.
No, at a lower tax rate.
Well,
If you have $1.5 billion versus
not
$1 billion.
4.5% increase, you're gonna need more money. Where does it begin and end? You're saying that we just divide it up over the total assessed value, but
Right.
if there's more assessed value out there, you're gonna get a little more revenue out of it. In
So you're
total.
gonna get a lower tax. We can't ask for any more money than you give us.
Yeah, right.
So the budget's the budget, the warrant article's the warrant article.
Yeah.
If it all totals up to $5 million, that's all the money we can ask for from the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And if the value of property went up 20%, then the amount that
But what
they're
I'm
paying
saying is in the
taxes.
short run, before it's absorbed,
Yeah,
the tax bills go out for every parcel.
Right.
And if there's more parcels out there, you got more money coming in the short run.
But that means you'd have to have an annual
No.
appraisal of every
Well,
property in
it's
town.
not an annual appraisal, I mean, it goes on the tax rolls as soon as the property it has a certificate of occupancy issued.
But it doesn't matter, Gary. I mean, if we bring $10 million house onto the tax rolls,
Right.
it just adjusts the divisor. That's all it does.
After two tax bills, it becomes just part of the division. But in the short run, your tax bills don't allow.
No, it doesn't. It does. So if somebody added a $10 million house, then we're gonna put another 40 grand on the.
Well, I mean, let me rephrase the
I wish
question.
we could.
It certainly works to have the tax rate go down because you've got a bigger divider, so.
Right.
Do we have an idea of how much the assessed
We
value?
will in January. Yeah, because we get that one.
Okay, so by the 18th, we'll have something
Yeah.
substantial.
I mean, I think if we just set a goal, you want to do your.
I would like to say that we would have a thorough review on the 18th of your proposed warrant articles,
Okay.
so that by the first, or even worst case scenario, the first week or the second week in February, we can have our hearing
Yeah.
and put everything to bed for the budget season.
Okay, that's a
All right.
good goal. And I don't see any reason not to.
Chip, on that 10-wheel truck, is that a replacement? What do they have one already, right? Which is how old, is it 2008 or 2010 or something?
I forget, I think it's
Are
2000.
they trading that in, are they getting rid of that, are they keeping that?
No, that would go away,
That'll go away.
right?
And the reason I ask that is, if it's a 2008, I know people that have 10-wheel dump trucks that have had them for forever, and they keep on going and going and going.
Right.
It seems as though we replace them.
Yeah, because when those break, you fix them, and there's no problem. The problem with the one big town truck is that if it breaks and it's snowing, what are you gonna do?
It's gonna break anyway, I mean, that's, what do you do? I mean, they do
No, but
break.
it's less likely to break if it's newer. I mean, you don't want to run old equipment when you have municipal.
So the police cars still be, what, every 8 years?
I mean, it's 50 years, so we got, you wanted to get 2 this year, and that's not enough.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the chance.
Anything else forthcoming? We have motion to adjourn, right?
I'll draft
Vote.
a statement and send it
We
to
have a
you.
motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Favor aye?
Aye.
Thank you very much.